Hi. Bollywood movie recaps here. Today I will be explaining a true-life Indian movie titled PADMAN. The movie opens to a traditional marriage between our main character Lakshmi and his wife Gayatri. Lakshmi loves his wife dearly. He likes to spend time with her and get her nice gifts. Lakshmi is a skillful handyman and he works at a local repair shop. From the movie we see that Lakshmi has strong engineering and problem-solving instincts and likes to apply it in his everyday life. For instance, when he makes a wooden chair behind his bicycle so his wife can sit comfortably when they move around. One evening during dinner, Gayatri suddenly feels uneasy and walks out. His mother and sister judge her mood and follow to help. They warn a concerned Lakshmi to stay back, but he ignores them and goes after his wife. Outside she informs him she just entered her period and by tradition she must stay away from everyone till it ends. Reluctantly Lakshmi agrees. The next morning, Lakshmi brings tea to his wife. She breaks tradition for a brief moment when she hugs him for fear of a wall gecko before coming to herself. In that instant she drops a filthy cloth which Lakshmi tries to kick away. But she stops him and hangs the cloth on a drying line close by. Lakshmi asks her what use such a dirty cloth might be and she retorts once again, telling him to stay away from her. It is at this moment that Lakshmi realizes that the dirty cloth is what she uses to keep clean during her period. Later he visits the pharmacist to buy a sanitary pad for his wife. At first, she is excited about it but immediately rejects it when she notices the 55 rupee price tag. She complains that it is too expensive and orders Lakshmi to return it. Lakshmi takes it back to the pharmacist but goods bought are not refundable. So he takes it with him to work. At work, an accident occurs and a worker starts bleeding. Lakshmi thinks quickly and uses one of the pads to stop the bleeding. At the hospital, the worker is treated and Lakshmi is praised for his prompt action. He and the doctor then have a chat about the negative health issues that women go through by using the dirty sanitary cloth. Lakshmi is worried about his wife's health and starts thinking of a way to get her to use the clean sanitary pads. Her main reason for not using them is the cost, so he sets his mind to buying a cheaper one or even better, creating one himself. He examines the pad and assumes it is made of simple cotton. So he buys some cotton from the nearby market and fetches glue from a shoemaker. He sits by the river and starts making his own version of a sanitary pad. He presents his wife Gayatri with the pad later that night, telling her he made it all by himself and it costs 0 rupees. He pleads with her to use it but she tells him her period is over and she won't be able to use it until 3 weeks' time. This kills his joys for the moment but he manages his emotions. Few weeks later they both are on amusement park letting their hair down and cooling off. Suddenly Gayatri feels uneasy again and she has to be rushed home. She tries on Lakshmi's self-made pad for the first time. The next day Lakshmi goes to find out if it worked well but is disappointed as Gayatri tells him that it worked poorly and she soiled herself throughout the night. Lakshmi is a little disappointed but still has inwardly determined to make his invention work. He tries again. This time trying something new and different. He gives it to his wife again but she refuses and this comes as a blow to him. He needs to find out if this works. He gets an idea and visits his sister in her marital home. At the dining table, he is having a good time with the family when suddenly her son pulls out one of the sanitary pads and starts waving it around like a flag. This brings a dark cloud over their dinner and everyone is embarrassed. Back at home, his sister is furious with him for shaming her in front of her in-laws. He tries to explain that he is just trying to help but the more that he does that, the more they misunderstand him. They plead with him to let go of this newfound obsession as his wife listens from the background. He goes to bed angrily and decides to forget about ever helping them or creating a pad for them. However, that night he has a terrible nightmare about his wife. In his dream she had a serious infection that caused her great pain. She needed medical attention and was taken for surgery. He almost loses her. He awakens from his dream and promises to do everything in his power to protect her and keep her from harm. Looking for someone to test his invention on, Lakshmi visits the doctor, but he has been transferred to another facility in another town. He continues his search and it leads him to a bus stop. There, he follows a bus to an all-girl medical school. He tries to give out his pad to some of the students to try, but the guards drive him away. He runs into a student on a motorcycle one time and the two have a connection. He gives her some of them his pad so she can show to her friends and convince them to try it on. But they all reject the pad, stating they cannot trust its credibility. Feeling guilty for Lakshmi, she fills out the feedback form he gave her as a response to how effective the pads were. But Lakshmi finds out and leaves her without saying a word. Meanwhile, a young lady has just had her first menstrual flow and the women in the town usher her into womanhood in a small ceremony, as custom demands. Later that night, as the girl is laid to bed by her mother, Lakshmi creeps up the window and gives her one of his pad to use. Just then her mother comes in and is shocked to see Lakshmi at her window. She raises an alarm and wakes the whole neighborhood up, including Lakshmi's family. The next morning, Lakshmi's mother and sisters are packing their belongings to leave the house. And so is his wife. Lakshmi apologizes to her and does his best to convince her to stay. She stays on condition that he will not give his pad to other women aside her. Lakshmi agrees. Life goes back to normal and they go about their daily routine as usual. One day, as they test the strength of a sling of a local playground, Lakshmi's supervisor speaks of the importance of testing your own product before serving it to clients. This sparks an idea in Lakshmi's brain. He realizes he doesn't need a woman to test his pad. He can test his pad on himself. He collects animal blood and other materials he needs from friends to test his pad. He puts on the pad with some drops of blood, moves about jumping and running and checking himself for any stains. When nothing happens, he rushes home excited to tell his wife the good news. But his joy is cut short halfway through the journey when his pants get badly stained with blood, right in the middle of the town square. A crowd starts gathering around him and he dives into the river to avoid further embarrassment. Among the crowd, his wife looks on shocked. The villagers have had enough and they organize a meeting to decide the fate of Lakshmi. Some are convinced that he has a demon, others say he has just gone crazy and should be whipped while hanging on a tree. As they continue to deliberate these, Gatri's father comes in angrily to drag his daughter away from Lakshmi. Lakshmi leaves the village willingly, swearing to bring back respect to his wife and family. In search for answers, he goes to a university of technology and lives with a professor. He does all the dishes, cleans the house, cooks and takes care of the professor's young son. One night the young boy introduces Lakshmi to the internet, where he shows him what the pad is really made of and where to get those materials. Lakshmi uses a payphone and with the help of the little boy, orders a box of cellulose. The order arrives few weeks later and when questioned by the professor, he tells him of his ambition to create a pad all by himself. The professor is intrigued by this and makes Lakshmi watch a video of the complex industrial process of pad making. He talks Lakshmi out of his daydream and urges him to work hard so he can afford a pad rather than chase wild dreams. Lakshmi is dispirited for a minute, but as the video continues to play, he realizes that he can figure a way to simplify the process and make a pad for himself. He bid the professor and his son goodbye the next day and leaves to start his production. He buys an old rusty warehouse and breaks down the machine process in his makeshift factory. He acquires a loan from a local businessman to buy the right equipment. Lakshmi works for hours, day and night. After the months of deep hard work, Lakshmi comes out with the perfect pad. But how does he know if it works right? On a fateful evening, on the street, Lakshmi is met by two girls who badly need to get a sanitary pad for their friend as a matter of urgency. Like magic, Lakshmi pulls two pads right from his pocket and hands it to them. He finally got someone to test the quality of his pad on. The next day, Lakshmi goes to find out from the ladies how good the pad works. They find it offensive and almost insultingly tell him it works just fine. Lakshmi can't hide his joy and tells them he created the pad all by himself. Still excited, he phones his wife Gatri to tell her of the good news. She is happy to hear his voice at first but fades into sadness when he keeps chatting about the pad without even asking if she is well. He is still overly obsessed with the pad. She leaves him on the phone and cries her way to her room. Her father tells him the divorce papers will reach him soon. A heartbroken Lakshmi returns to his warehouse, grieved. Fortunately, his first client Pari is waiting outside for him. She is curious about his drive, so he narrates his entire story. She is touched by his story and also feels an uncanny attraction to his persona. He gifts her more of his sanitary pad and they share a friendly moment together. Seeing that he may lose his dear wife, the one for which he has gone through all this trouble, Lakshmi ponders the fate of his factory. More pressure mounts as one of his creditors demand their money back. Right on cue, a gentleman sent by Pari hands over the phone to Lakshmi. She tells him of a science fair about to take place in the capital. Many innovators will be present and it would be greatly important to have him showcase his innovation. She also adds that the innovation adjudged to be the most influential will win a reward of 200,000 rupees. This is just what he needed. He quickly arranges and moves to the capital to showcase his self-made machine. A designated panel goes around inspecting and reviewing the many inventions on display at the exhibition. When they get to Lakshmi, he briefs them on the process and about how he wishes to make the pad as affordable as possible, selling for as low as 2 rupees. At the award ceremony, the president gives a rousing speech before Lakshmi is selected and awarded for having the most impactful of all the innovations. He celebrates with Pari and her father later on. The people of his village see that he has made the news and are both shocked and proud of him, including his wife. While still living with Pari and her dad, they tell Lakshmi about the implications of his big win. Large companies will come looking to buy or steal his work. They advise him to apply for a patent and secure himself legally. This doesn't make sense to him. He just wants to make pad for women who can't afford the expensive one and doesn't care about the legalities of his invention. He confides in Pari about this, but she is too drunk to pay any attention. So the next day he leaves for the village, leaving a note behind. Back home he is greeted with joy and celebration as news about his award spread throughout the village. He exhibits his machinery to them and they are excited. But the excitement quickly turns to rage when they realize that his invention was the pad all along. Lakshmi is in disbelief. He phones Pari and tells her that he gives up. He realizes his pad and hard work will never be appreciated by the people of his village. She visits the warehouse soon and tries to cheer him up. She packs up the pad in her backpack and sells it door to door in the village. Surprisingly, the people warm up to her and she sells all of it, making Lakshmi smile and believe again. She lives in the factory with Lakshmi a few more days and they meet a woman with a child and an abusive husband. They take her in and train her to operate the machine and sell the pads to earn herself a living. She invites other women and girls as well, training them to operate the machine and sell the pads just like she did, making money for themselves. They decide to give the pad the brand name Pari after Lakshmi's friend and partner. Seeing positive cash flow, they take a loan to embark on expansion, training new machine operators and getting more women to sell. They also travel across the country teaching and advising women on the importance of a hygienic sanitary pad. In every district or town they travel, they keep training women to produce and sell the pad, leaving a lasting impact on many lives. Pari's father, impressed, connects them to some media houses to broadcast his good works. Lakshmi is soon on TV, showing his innovation to the public, including his many doubters. The pad company sees rapid growth, exporting within India and soon to other parts of the world too. One afternoon, major event occurs as Lakshmi and his team receive a call from the United Nations inviting them over for a speech and talk session on the importance of good menstrual hygiene. He flies over and gives a rousing speech about his journey. Despite his poor English, he talks about how he began, the many doubters and naysayers he had to endure, his mental fortitude, his desire to see women live healthily and his dream to reach all women in India with his pad selling for only 2 rupees. His speech and sense of humor warms the audience and they give him a standing ovation at the end. Later, in the joy of the moment, Pari and Lakshmi are about to share an intimate moment, but they are suddenly interrupted when he receives a call from his wife Gayatri. Pari immediately withdraws, disappointed. On the flight back home, they sit awkwardly and share an emotional goodbye at the airport as Lakshmi thanks her for the unwavering support and walks away. Pari is left to imagine what could have been. Lakshmi is given a big hero's welcome back home. He is reunited with his wife and with his family. Everyone now accepts and uses his pad as they should. He is given several awards, making headlines and teaching many women about good menstrual hygiene all over the world and in India. A true hero. Be sure to click the subscribe button, like and share for more videos like this.